I remember when President Eisenhower was elected. My grandmother and mother were Democrats. My grandfather and father were Republicans. So Sunday dinners were very spirited conversations about politics. I also remember as a teenager the campaign for Robert F. Kennedy. He seemed so young and vibrant, and really my interest in politics was piqued both at church, at school, and then at home with those conversations around the dinner table. Maybe at 15, I was in the library after school, and I noticed when I went to get my books there was another book of interest. And that book was Let My People Go by Albert Luthuli, who was a Nobel Peace Prize winner from South Africa. And instead of doing my homework that day, I read the book. And that was my real first kind of in-depth knowledge about what was going on in South Africa, which compared to what we were experiencing here was awful too. I was studying history, and no one was talking to me about the inhumanity of apartheid or slavery or problems around the world. That was very troubling to me. I was already interested in politics by the time I got to Howard. In my class, and 2 classes ahead of me were the founders of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee at Howard. And they held meetings on campus to bring us up to date on what was going on in their work in the South. It was around that time, I was 18, 19, 20, that I realized that I wanted to spend my life in the South as it transformed itself from Jim Crow to a freer society. My first move to the South was to teach in a program in Alabama called the 13 College Program, funded by Ford, to recruit African American teachers, young teachers, who had recently received advanced degrees, and fell in love with this little town called Talladega College, Talladega, Alabama, and taught there for several years, political science and social science. When the students organized voter registration for local residents, they closed the registration office. When the students decided to march, even on campus, they called the National Guard out. There was you could see evidence of how cruel Jim Crow and racism was and had been in that community. Maynard Jackson came to Talladega College to speak to a history class. And I had a chance to hear him and to meet him then. And he talked about running for mayor. And then I had the opportunity to move to Atlanta when I got married in 1972. Maynard's campaign was the second campaign that I worked on in Atlanta. The first was Andrew Young when he was running for Congress. The second time, the time that he won. And I worked every single day as a volunteer. When I started working with Andy and Maynard in politics, it gave me, I thought, an open door to talk about policy. And one of the policies that Maynard was very interested in was integrating the arts and culture into the city government. So Maynard asked me if I would serve on the Atlanta Symphony Board as his representative. Fast forward a year or so, I become the director of cultural affairs. At that point, I was not interested in another job. I thought I had the best job in the city, in the world, really. A small group of people, especially Maynard and Andy, came to me and said they thought I should run for office. I thought they were nuts. And I spent 9 months in therapy because I realized that here were 2 very powerful, exceptional men and a half a dozen of exceptional women, all who saw in me something I didn't see in myself. And after 2 years, I ran for office. I'm the sewer mayor. I'm proud of it. I mean, infrastructure is really important. You can't live without clean, accessible water. It needs to be affordable. It needs to be available to everyone. I am overwhelmed by gratitude that the people of Atlanta elected me. It's hard to talk about your own legacy. Certainly, the election as the first woman is part of that. But I think the biggest legacy, the thing that people talk to me about, is that I was honest, that I was candid, that I told the truth, that I worked hard. We all want our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to live good lives. That means they have to have clean air, clean water, fair treatment, access to education, jobs, fair pay. We'll only get there if we keep working on it. The lesson I've learned in my life is that even when you have accomplishments, you have to keep up the struggle. Someone is still left out, and it's our responsibility to erase that gap for them.